welcome to the Get It Done podcast and the Hard Truths podcast with Scott Lurie. I'm your host, Jimi Ryan. Today we are interviewing Scott Lurie. Scott is the proud owner of 2,200 rental units. He is the founder of F Street Lending, which is a hard money lender. He is I know him as a husband and a father of two, a 15 and 16-year-old boy and girl. He is a investor in all things, entrepreneurial investor in real estate and lending, and also a previous investor in cannabis. And there's a lot of things that I want to get into. He's also a huge person in local charities. He gives back, and that's also something I want to get into with you too. The Guest House, United Way, UPath, First Stage, Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Scott, welcome to the Get It Done podcast.
Jimmy, thanks for having me.
Brother, for sure. So I'm pumped to be interviewing you today because we met at the Hustle Harder event.
Oh yeah.
And that was quite an epic event. I know you emceed it, and actually Tony was telling me he was worried that somebody wasn't going to show up for it. He was going to ask me to MC it. What was it like emceeing an event?
I loved it, man. The energy in that room Friday and Saturday, 300 people, 26 states. Tony, who was integral in the creation and promotion and drive of that event, blew my mind. That was our first event here in the Midwest. The Midwest generally doesn't get those types of big time keynote speakers and all things real estate. And we packed it with 26 states and 300 people. We had a great attendance from the city of Milwaukee and the Milwaukee entrepreneurial community. I continue to talk to them via Instagram every day right now. And I was blown away. There was a 14-year-old kid in the audience who continues to ask me to be his mentor and help him. And I'm like, man, you're 14. And I can't wait to help this kid. So it was an amazing event. Really, really awesome. MCing an event, first time for me. But it was amazing. It's passionate. It was fun. It was about real estate. It's about what I love. And it was great to see everyone turn out. So fun weekend.
Brother, I love that. And you did a great job too, by the way. Especially, and look, I had to compliment you because I knew it was your first time doing it. And it is kind of a tough thing to get up there and edify somebody, or really just to run the show. But there were people from all across the country, and I had so many great connections from it. And it's really me focusing on more of the consumer lending side. It was like a different language that you're learning with like raps and
subject twos and wholesales and all the other language they're talking about is amazing.
It really is, and I'm looking forward to the next one. And you're right. There's most events like that are in Vegas or in Arizona or New York or wherever it is, Atlanta. And that's just what Tony said. He's like, I'm always flying out to all these places. Let's do something here in Milwaukee. And
for sure,
I recommend it to the next one that's put out there, the Hustle Harder event. And I want to get right into this. So I want to first talk about with you is really your love for the charities that are local here in Milwaukee. I think that it's something that a lot of people will look to you as, hey man, you got all this money, you're this successful dude. But a lot of times I think people make some money and then they forget about, number one, where they came from, but number two, that they really have a responsibility to give back and help people. What about giving to all these, like I listed them, Guest House, UPath, First Stage, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, United Way. What about giving back to these programs that's so important to you?
I think you nailed it, Jimmy. Whether or not we all agree or not, it is for sure a undertone that we have an obligation as we continue to be successful in our various walks of life that we continue to give back to our community. And giving back comes in many different ways, right? There's people that don't have the monetary ability to give back, but they volunteer. And then you have the people that don't have the time, but they might have the means to help promote and provide. Going back to my childhood, my grandfather was very philanthropic. That was one of the things that he knew. Coming from a background of Judaism, where tzedakah or the give back or charity was known, he was very big in tzedakah, and that's resonated with my life to this day. So I have a obligation, internal obligation, to continue to give back. I created, with the help of my father, the Papa Joe, in memory of my grandfather, his scholarship fund at the Jewish beginning school where they give scholarships to people in need who are not able to get education to provide education. We give money to the UPATH and the Performing Arts Center and all of the guest house in Milwaukee, which touches very deep to me. 30 plus years of trying to erase homelessness in our community, and there's never been a bigger need for people to support organizations like the guest house, right? The demand for mental health, AODA, substance abuse, you name it, in our society is peaking right now, but the peak is going to go up significantly. And so having that ability to be rewarded by simply providing some type of provide for their campaign and to provide ways and means for us to do better by helping others fulfill their missions is really important to me. And I encourage everyone, whether it's $1, $5, or whatever number you can do, or if you have your time, please be sure to support our communities. Our communities need us. We're built as communities where there are some weaknesses in people, and we need to support them. And I'm happy to be able to do that.
I think it comes from focusing on what unites us, not what divides us. And
Absolutely.
And I think that all of us as just human beings should just be, we have to be united. We have to
The common good, the common good of people needs to resonate. We need to be able to take care of each other, whether that's whatever that means. Good people should do good things, and being good to others is important.
100%. So, and you mentioned some things like homelessness, soft spot for me. I'm a lender with 14 years of experience, and I've helped a lot of people buy their first homes. It's very important to me to get people into homes. I think that
and they have a program, so they have the Keys program at the guest house, which is similar to getting them into homes. It's getting them into their own apartment off of the streets, and so they don't get to acquire the apartment, but they get to move into the apartment. They go through the Keys program, which allows them to have AODA and mental health awareness and coaching. Because don't forget, people's lives are fragile and they can be rattled relatively quickly. And with organizations like the Guest House or any other charitable organization that's supporting our community, these are backdrops for folks that don't have a support system 100%. That one might have at home. That would be, hey, son, you had a problem today, and instead of him having no place to go but the streets, he has mom and dad. Well, a lot of people don't have mom and dad. A lot of people don't have family. A lot of people don't have those supports. And they turn to substance, they turn to the streets, and we have our obligation to help them. So my encouragement to everybody to be sure that we can support those folks.
Brother, that's fire. I think a lot of people do. They escape reality, and they do it with drugs and alcohol or something else. Sometimes it's healthy, but a lot of times they need that AODA assessment to get back on their feet. And mental health, I think, is something that is a huge thing, a huge problem, especially in the post-COVID world.
Yeah, it was interesting. Just one more touch on that.
Yeah.
Mental health is a serious problem, right? It's real.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking to Carlos Reyes, who was on our stage, who's got a massive following. This guy, if you don't know who he is, look him up. But he's a phenomenal, it's a very successful story of starting literally on a dirt floor and getting to where he is today to be a 10-figure earner and support his family and all.
Genuine good dude too.
Yeah, genuine. But what he said is amazing. He's like, there's days when I'm depressed. There's moments in 2021 when I was depressed. Mm-hmm. And mental health is real. And so he has the support mechanism to be able to get out of those dark days, but many don't. And so it's important that we go out and help them. So that's my thought for it.
Yeah, shout out to Carlos Reyes.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's absolutely a fire dude. If you get a chance to see him speak, I would absolutely take that opportunity. So look, this podcast is really about the come up story, and we use Elon Musk as an example. He has a story of going from $1 million to $1 billion, and that's a great story. But what we're really focused on is the 0 to $1 million story, the come up story. So what I want to hear about is Scott before he was all of these things, like I've just mentioned. Like, brother, there's a lot of people that will never get to all these types of things. It's a huge accomplishment, everything you've accomplished in your life. But I want to start out with really how you started your life. Where were you born? What was early childhood like? What did your parents do? What was those first few years like?
Yeah, I wish I had that dirt story to tell someone if I came from nothing. And I came from a middle class family. I grew up in Bayside, Wisconsin. Went to Nicolay High School, graduated from there, and went off to higher education in Washington D.C. I grew up in a middle class family. I felt the pain of the middle class. I had some really great moments. I was fortunate to have parents that were there to support me. But I also was involved in a family business, which is those of you who are involved and never been involved, they're volatile. They have great years, they have bad years, they've had the political family bureaucracy of nonsense. My grandfather and his brother had a dispute, and my two uncles and my other uncle had a dispute, and I've gone through the nonsensical aggravation of that growing up. So was it a crack mother who left me and was beating me? No. Was it? Everybody has a different story, right? And my story is not greater or worse. I grew up as a kid. All I wanted to do was make money. I was young. When I was 12 years old, I started tie-dyeing t-shirts and working at Summerfest for Andy White's as we were selling tie-dyes. I was paying me $10 an hour, and I'd go to his house right after school. We'd tie-dye hundreds of shirts, and I was making money, and I loved it. When I was 16 years old, I started cutting grass with my business partner in my real estate. Some of my real estate today, we would cut 28 lawns a week. And it was the greatest, about $20 a lawn, sometimes 30. And that was my summers. I used to play tennis. I was all about how could I make money. That was my whole thing. I worked for a friend of mine in his condom business, Mr. Hardin Condoms, Jimi Paley, who was a tennis coach of mine. And he was a novelty condom distributor. And we were working in that business, folding each one of his inserts for a penny. We would do anything, right? It was all about, for me, it was just the idea of commerce and making money was very intriguing. And going back to when I was a kid, there used to be First Star Bank, and you used to get a passport. And my goal in that passport was to get it to be $10,000. And I remember going every week and depositing $200, $300, $500. And eventually I got it to $10,000, and that was my goal. So, I had an internal fire to be successful by way of just making money. And everyone has that desire, right? My little kid right now, my 16-year-old is, I want to make money. I want to do X amount of dollars this summer. And I'm trying to get him to think a little bit bigger. But that's where everyone starts, right? You start from your own product of environment. Some people have a really troubled past. And that's what propels them forward, right? 100%. Some people have a life experience that's different. And that's what propels them. Someone has an aha moment. That's what propels them. For me, I didn't have one particular moment of, I knew that coming home and hearing my parents either argue about a business or seeing my family drag through the media related to one brother not getting along with the other brother, who knows what else is going on, was enough propulsion for me to know I wanted to be successful. And so that was it. So I was, one of the other aha moment, so to speak, is I was a kid from Milwaukee. I went to school in Washington, D.C. I went to school at the George Washington University. And I didn't visit the school before I enrolled. I just enrolled, and my grandma, who was no longer with us, went out there and checked it out. She came back, she said, "Scott, it's great." I couldn't go because I was parking cars at Summerfest. My parents had a parking lot off of their facility on the corner of Milwaukee and Menominee, and I would park cars there. So $10 a car, 500 cars a day. I'm like, well, I'm not leaving to go to look at a school. You go, Grandma. And so, but that was the time. And then I remember getting to school, and your eyes open, right? You're like, wow, this world is big. I remember I was in J. Crew jeans. I walked into school. I was by myself, didn't know anyone. And you walk in, and you're like, what the hell? Who are these people from New York? Who are these people from Boston? This whole East Coast thing is, and it's somewhat intimidating to some level, but it's also, I took it as, how do I get to know these people? What the hell are they doing? And my dear friends right now are from the East Coast, and my college roommates are from the East Coast, and they're all over investment banking, and who knows what they're doing and being successful in life. And it was like, man, I gotta get there, and people were wearing suits to class. I'm like, what is a suit, and why are you wearing that to class? So carry on, that's kind of where I came from. And
well, there's so many places I can go with that. So I want to actually start with, I want to go back to the family business piece. So I also grew up in a family business, and so you're overworked, and you're paid little,
you're paid, but you kill at the end of the day in a family business. But don't forget, and you got your family, your employees, your payroll, your union, your blah blah blah. I mean, I can go down the list. It's.
I think truly the value in the family business is the education that you get, and like the hard love. Like, listen, you're kind of being thrown to the wolves in a lot of ways. That's how I learned so much from my work ethic, is because my uncles literally threw me to the wolves and basically made it so that I had no choice, but I'm waking up at 4 in the morning to open up their store at 5 a.m. And like, you're not really, like, they expect you to work that extra hard. And then you're right, the politics, the dysfunction, the disputes, it's all crazy. But I guess you grew up in that type of an environment.
Yeah.
How do you think that helps you today with all the businesses that you have?
Yeah, man, that's a great question, Jimmy. I would say to you that, part of it is really how do you build a team? I remember that there was very little emphasis in my parents' family business on the team, right? How to lift them up because they were so focused on survival.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a chance to build the team or to give to the team. And instead, my focus is on how to build my team. And, I'm very proud that when someone comes here and joins our team, they very rarely leave. They fit into our culture. Our culture is important to us. Team lunches are important to me. Getting together with people, celebrating the victories with the team, celebrating the wins, supporting everybody. That was non-existent in my family business, right? It was all about the day, right? And for me, it's all about the success of the team. So you invest time, right? Everyone learns from their challenges, and for me, it's my proud moment is to see our team get their first closing, get to their 100th closing, get to achieve our goals that we set forth for the year. Celebrate with them, share with them, be proud of them, give them a chance to go have a vacation, give them a chance to go do certain things. So, overall, for me, it's really building and supporting the team that just didn't exist in my parents' family business that I used to watch. It was like, there was no time for that.
Brother, same. And you actually remind me of my uncle a lot. It's a hard type of mentality. It really is. Like you have to. I'm sure. I'm getting the impression that the people that really impacted you early on had a really hard life. Like you're kind of second generation type of a thing.
Yeah. So if you ask them, it wasn't hard. Did they get to go out and play golf? Did we go on vacations? I would say we were in the middle class, right? We did it, but it was with tremendous stress, right? And people don't realize. So you live with stress, right? And people are like, oh yeah, you came from the North Shore. I'm like, yeah, but there's so many people in the North Shore that suffer. There's people out west that suffer. Money and life is a real thing, right? It just is. Everyone wants to be successful. What do you want to be successful for? To make life a little bit less stressful.
And define success too. Is it that you have a house on the North Shore, or is it that you're living with freedom? Is it?
For me, the whole thing is that I saw a lot of it where the pressures of debt were insurmountable for periods of time, right? Or I found that cash liquidity was a challenge, right? When you run a family business and liquidity is to get a PO out, to get a deal done. Sometimes you suffer your own personal liquidity for that deal, and I saw it, man. It wasn't like, oh, hey, this guy's coming from a tough place. I came from a great upbringing. I had a very supportive family. I had a very supportive opportunities in life. I'm grateful for those, but everything isn't easy.
Right, and you mentioned a couple things to move on to high school. I was talking to Tony about this. Me and him were terrible at high school. We were terrible students. It's just that I wasn't interested. Is really what it was. If I was all in, I probably would have done really great. But what was high school like for you?
Yeah, I always was a guy with heavy logic, right? I'm like, why do I need to know the sine, cosine of this thing? Where's that? When am I going to ever use that in my life? But I also knew that I needed to get a grade in this to get to where I wanted to go.
Right.
And so did college define me? No, but it brought me a different way of thinking. And so for that, I'm thankful for. So I just knew how to be successful, right? Part of my life was to be successful, right? So if you can be successful by putting as little energy as possible to still get the A, to get to where you need to be on your GPA to get into a university, that was my goal, right? I didn't want to do any more work than someone else had to do. That wasn't what I was doing.
You were driven and you basically put your head down and you just got it done. So
that's it.
I want to talk about this. A good mentor of mine, his name's Renee Rodriguez. He's a great man. He's a speaking coach. Honestly, you should go to Amplify. It's a great program. Anyway, he talks a lot about how everything that we do in our lives a lot of times stems from things that happened to us when we were young. So like between 8, 9, and 13 is what he says, is that a lot of the things we do is to either heal our past or to honor our past. What are you trying to heal? What are you trying to honor?
Yeah, healing was never, I guess that's a fair thing. I guess my brain doesn't think like that. I'm not wounded. I don't have these open wounds of like, I wish I could have gone back and had that moment again,
Right.
everyone wishes they maybe had another chance to say goodbye to your grandfather or talk to your grandmother. Yeah, of course, we all wish those times. For me, I grew up hearing various different arguments about money or feeling the pressures of money, right? I felt them, right? I felt them as a kid. I'm like, hey, why are mommy and daddy arguing about money, right? And it was like, man, and then it was like the next day, they would go and do something, right? We'd be like, okay, now we're buying a new car. I'm like, wait a second, did we just argue about it? Nothing makes sense. And so part of my mission right now is for my kids. I've got 2 of them, and I'm really focused on, I want them to have a better life than I've had, right? That's my dad. My dad always says, Scott, you've outkicked your coverage. You've done way better than we expected, and we wanted to give you a better life. And I'm like, Dad, thanks, life's great. And I want to do that for my kid, right? And so my kids. And so I'm focused right now on just building that legacy and giving them the opportunity to have more. And life continues to get more expensive. It continues to cost more money and have more challenges. And I just want to make it just a smidge easier. Not easier by way of don't work, right? Because you're working. You're getting to work. I mean, my kid's, shoveling snow and plowing lawns and cutting grass, and he's working, and that's important to me.
Right.
You have to work. You must work. But working to be more successful is not a bad game for him.
100%. And not slaving away doing something that's I guess terrible. And what a compliment, by the way, that your dad gives you outkicked your coverage. That's like, I mean, he must be super proud.
He means it. I mean, it's genuine. My parents, as I said, when I left the family business in 2003, I'm like, hey guys, I'm giving you notice I'm leaving. He was like, I feel like he was relieved from the moment. He's like, oh man, great, because I don't have the burden of you. Now, you know what I mean? But it's like a burden. It's like, it was like, so I'm like left, and
it's a responsibility.
We've been continuing to grow our business and our team, and so when I get to celebrate the moments, he and I played in these golf events, father-son events, and he was just down with me in Florida. We played it. It's fun to be with him today, where we're just father-son versus business folks.
What was your first job in high school, and what was your first car?
My first job, man, I had so many jobs. From selling T-shirts to cutting grass. That was probably my longest summers were cutting grass. We used to load up. I think I had a 4Runner or a Jetta. I don't remember which one it was, but stick shift Jetta. Love that car. It was actually
diesel?
No, it was a Jetta Trek. They gave me a Trek bike with it, and I was like, this is cool. Those were my first jobs. Was basically cutting grass. And I did a bunch of other stuff along the way. Like my time was very consumed with figuring out ways to earn money.
So, and I want to just stay there for a second. So I think that a lot of people, Scott, will see you now, and they'll be like, man, this guy got it given to him. Man, he got lucky. And I think that a lot of times, I'm an overnight success. It just took me 30 years. You know what I mean? And this is the thing that I think I really want people to hear is that, listen, I cut grass. I mowed 28 lawns. I tie-dyed T-shirts and sold them. I worked at a parking lot to park cars.
Yeah, all of that builds your success, right? You're building and building and building and building and building.
100%. And you got good enough grades, which is like, I'm going to give you props to that because I definitely didn't. Yeah. And then went to college. So, okay, bring us to college. What did you go for at DC?
Yeah, so I went to school for finance. I went to get my finance degree.
Wow.
I got a BA in finance from the George Washington University. I sat in those lecture halls. I forged relationships. It was amazing. Listen, to live in Washington, D.C., my first dorm was on 19th and F. Our company's name is F Street because I lived on F Street. It was very creative of me, but 19th and F, where my dorm was, it would take me on a bicycle under 30 seconds to be in front of the White House. Wow. And our playground was the mall where we would play football and baseball, and